be, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Greetings and gnosis from our Lord the Donkey. I have a long story to share with you. So, welcome and be at ease. Sit your ass right down. Relax into this long-eared tale, a yarn that spins out from a very long time ago. Let yourself drift back into the ancient past, into the land of Egypt, the home of the mysteries, the birthplace of the gods. Akatua tufur biu, bia chefu dudu no rafanu teru. Plutarch gives us his assurance that the god Set, or Seth, the murderer of Osiris, was known to take the form of an ass. Set was a god of wildernesses and remote places, a strong god who ruled over deserts and wastes, where the senses and determination of a donkey could be crucial for survival. Donkeys were valued for their endurance and for their careful, steady gait. An ass was a choice mount for an ornamented noble, or for a pregnant woman, or one with a babe in arms, because the animal was so prudent and deliberate that it would hardly ever make a misstep or take a spill. The priapic qualities of the donkey were also important to the worship of Set. The patent virility of the jack. All male asses are called Jack, a familiar form of John. The patent virility of the jack was an emblem of powers that inspire and powers that sustain against adversity. The cult of Set flourished in early dynastic times, well through the 12th dynasty of Old Egypt. But things changed in later centuries. Set became associated with the Hyksos people, conquerors from Syria who occupied Lower Egypt. The Hyksos identified Set with their god Baal, since both were lordly, beastly, priapic gods. And Set was also a god of remote places, distant lands like the home of the Hyksos. After the Egyptians overthrew their Hyksos rulers, they reviled and demonized Set. Because of that association, the prudence and virility of the donkey was reinterpreted as stupidity and sensuality. From being a god of the wilderness and of the hidden power of nature, Set was reduced to a figure of physical and moral evil. Set was made into a Satan, a foe of Egypt and her gods. The true votaries of Set were forced to propagate his worship in secret. Excluded from the communion of official cults, the ass went underground, but he did not die. Like that of the later Roman Empire, the old Egyptian religion was very diverse. It included many and varying gods. There are few instances of the sort of rejection that was visited upon Set, demoted from god to devil. But one god was even more loathsome, a god who needed not only to be transformed, but to be eradicated entirely. There was a god who tried to devour all the other gods, a god of light, a god whose truth was final and exclusive, who would permit no other gods to be held before him, who designed to leave no other gods after him, who was apparent everywhere and in everything, but intelligible only in the heart of the king. The king was Amenophis IV, and the god was Aten. In the name of Aten, and by his authority, the king abolished all of the traditional cults. He banned the feasts and festivals. The sacred processions were stopped. The images of the gods were destroyed. From the sea in the north to Nubia in the south, the names of the gods were effaced, especially the name of lordly Amun. The king moved the capital to a new city. The king took the new name, Akhenaten, a name meaning Good for Aten. The new god and his king damned the gods of Egypt and scorned their memory. For one short generation, Egypt suffered under the rays of Aten, an incomprehensible god, a god of pure light and pure being, a god who offered no consolation to the people, but who occupied the king's convictions. In less than 20 years, there was a counter-revolution. Aten was the one whose memory was obliterated. Amun retook his heavenly throne. The gods returned to their stations, vowing new fealty to Amun, so that no such tragedy should ever recur. But those who had embraced the doctrines of Akhenaten could still nurture their consciences in secret. The light went underground, but it did not die. The Atenist episode laid bare the spiritual tensions that had been growing in Egyptian religion. Some Atenist features entered into the cult of Amun, and an overall order was restored. But the rapid changes left a sense of uncertainty. The repressed cult of Set gained new energy. Other dissenters and rebels throughout the kingdom began to use religion as a vehicle for their complaints. From this unstable scene emerges a legendary figure, a saint of the Gnostic Catholic Church. We know him as Moses from the Hebrew histories of Moshe. And Moshe is a good Egyptian name, or at least part of one. We find it even in the name of kings like Tahutmose, meaning child of Tahuti. Of whom is Moses the child? Our hero is a savvy Egyptian prince. His family has worshipped Set for long centuries in the margins of Egyptian nobility. And now their time has come. He connives with the authorities to be given recognition and full authority over the religious dissidents and an assortment of outcasts, to lead them into a land of milk and honey where Egypt will be rid of them, and Thutmose will rule them as king. So, these people governed by Thutmose were the original Hebrews, worshippers of the great donkey god, whose true name, Set, was ritually suppressed from the long habits of repression in Egypt. Instead, this god of the ancestors of Moses became known by the old Egyptian word for donkey, and onomatopoeic braying. Ya'o! Even that new name, Ya'o, was never spoken where the persecuting profane might hear it. And eventually it became a soundless word, an entity confined to the literate page, spelled in Hebrew, Yod-He Vov-He. The most common spoken title for the Hebrew god came not from the Set cult, but from others among those emigrants led into the wilderness by Thutmose, kindred spirits in the worship of the forbidden. The sublime ass was called Aten-I, praise Aten. Ate Gibor Leolam Adonai, thou art mighty unto the ages, O Jack of the heavens, light that shines in darkness. And Plutarch further instructs us that Typho escaped out of the battle upon an ass after a flight of 7 days, and that after he had got into a place of security, he begat 2 sons, Hierosolmus and Judaeus. And Plutarch himself insists that this story is only a fabulous version of the actual exodus of the Hebrews properly associated with Set and the ass. Now the heirs of Thutmose and his crew were a fierce and treacherous people. They fought for land, and they conquered tribes and cities. As they settled in to rule, they found they had sympathy for the gods of Canaan and the other peoples they had defeated. Whether or not they knew that their own god, their sacred ass, was a close cousin of Baal. Whether or not they consciously missed the pleasures of the Egyptian feasts and festivals. they settled into an increasingly diverse and fecund set of observances. The divine donkey might be eclipsed by the moon goddess, or enjoy himself with the holy cow of heaven. Baal, too, and other gods and goddesses found places in the popular religion, and sometimes in the cults of the rulers. The Hebrew scriptures are full of accounts of these trends, and the prophets that denounced them, and the punitive jealousies of Yahweh or Adonai. These scriptures were written later by Judeans in exile. Hebrew aristocrats held captive in Babylon at the mercy of the Persian Empire. These exiles learned from their captors about the importance of unified religion for political and military ambition. They wrote their scriptures to preserve history, but also to present it in a particular way, one that would unite the Hebrew people, one that would create a Yahweh as intolerant as Aten. They succeeded in their design, and from Zerubbabel to Herod, Yahweh did not lack a sanctuary. But that Atenist approach, excluding all other objects of worship, and confining the gnosis, the true knowledge of the ass, among a priestly elite, that Atenist approach created stress on the people and within the Judean leadership. There were those who longed for the earlier days, when public religion meant riotous festivals instead of Pharisees on street corners. So it was that the Hebrew Yohanan became Jack the Baptist, giving the people a part in the spiritual life of their society. And his successor and cousin, Jesus, who had spent his childhood in Egypt, he rode into Jerusalem on an ass, in a procession of triumph like the old Egyptian festivals. The Christian Tertullian records with horror an anecdote from ancient Carthage, where an apostate Jew one day appeared carrying a figure robed in a toga, with the ears and hoofs of an ass, and bearing a placard that read, Deus Christianorum ono coetis, which is to say, the Christian God begotten of an ass. Tertullian further admits that the crowd believed this quote-unquote infamous Jew. On an old Gnostic gem, we can see the image of an ass-headed person instructing two pupils and robed in the pallium, a distinctive garment of Christian leaders. Even in the pagan mysteries of Greece and Rome, we find the proximity of the donkey to the essence and vitality of religion. The Metamorphoses of Apuleius is a text better known as the Golden Ass, because its protagonist Lucius attains to the mysteries of the goddess after being magically transformed into a donkey. With the Hermetic stirrings of the Renaissance, the ass appears yet again. Although the vulgar take the donkey as a symbol of ignorance and stupidity, occultists and magicians know better. Cornelius Agrippa, in his Vanity of the Arts and Sciences, praises the ass as a paradigm of virtue. Giordano Bruno, whose heliocentrism was wedded to his Hermetic magic, made the donkey a symbol of the highest mystical state in his personal Kabbalah, declaring it to be the triumphant beast. Finally, Saint Friedrich Nietzsche, in his magnum opus, Thus Spake Zarathustra, makes the ass the focus of a festival created by the higher men, a festival that apes the Christian Eucharist, and one that provides an affirmation of the strength and beauty and potential in nature and humanity. If an ass inspires us to create, let us create without fear, for we can create nothing that is not God. In the name of Yahweh, Hagios, 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 Yahweh. Love is the law. Love under will.